we need the whole wrestling community, because I invite you to come and be a part of history, because we are literally taking wrestling to the final American frontier for our sport.
We can endure anything and adapt and pivot and change. Wrestling gave us that ability.
I would say nothing in life has impacted me more than the things wrestling has taught me in terms of self-reflection, resilience.
Toughness. Some guys have it, some guys don't.
Adversity, 100%. How to pick myself up and be a man after I failed.
And everything that has shaped my life and where I'm at today would not be there without the values and basically the lessons I've learned through the sport of wrestling.
For me, wrestling saved my life because it allowed me to focus and channel my energy.
We're fortunate if you wrestled, because if you wrestled, natural talent helps, but it's 5% of the ingredient. It pales in comparison to heart and technique and effort.
It humbled me, taught me humility. Nothing can humble you more than wrestling. I think it's the learning to adapt, right? You learn how to adapt, you learn how to solve problems.
You know, if I look back at my time I spent wrestling, if it gave me one thing more than anything else, it's mental toughness.
Welcome back to the Wrestling Changed My Life podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your host, Ryan Warner. As always, we are presented by Spartan Combat. They have a national tournament going on May 20th through May 23rd in Jacksonville, Florida. Register now at SpartanCombat.com. All right, folks, our guest today is Brian Fox. This man is leading a charge of passionate wrestling fans in Mississippi, and Brian is helping create high school wrestling at Mississippi schools across the state. Before Brian's efforts, there were 2 schools in the entire state of Mississippi that had wrestling. Now there are 7, and it's growing each season that these guys are working on there. Really enjoyed having Brian on the podcast to hear his story and the incredible things they're doing to help create Mississippi wrestling. Fan of the week goes to Marcus Refsland. That's Marcus Refsland on the gram. Doing my best to win the day. Amen, brother. Thank you for the support. We greatly appreciate it. And if you have any Fan of the Week nominations, text FOW to the number 22454. That's FOW to 22454. And without further ado, folks, let's get to the interview with Brian Fox. Peace! Well, let's just get started then. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience, my friend.
All right, my name is Brian Fox. I am from Dublin, Ohio. I wrestled there when I was 6 years old, through middle school, high school. I wrestled 1 year at Baldwin Wallace University, a Division III college in Cleveland, Ohio. And then since then, I've just still been a lover of the sport and trained here and there. And now I live in Tupelo, Mississippi, the heart of Northeast Mississippi. Okay. Actually, also the birthplace of Elvis Presley. I guess that's what they're famous for. So
respect to the king.
That's right. That's right. And so now I moved here about a year ago, right when COVID started getting real. And I came here, and I'd always wanted to coach wrestling. I just never had an opportunity to. I was moving around a lot. And so I got here, and I immediately wanted to look for somewhere to do that. So I started at a local martial arts gym, the nearest one to my house, and got there. I asked them, hey, do you guys have any wrestling around? I wrestled. And there was the owner who greeted me, and he said, no, you didn't wrestle. I was like, what do you mean? And he walked me around the desk, and he tied up with me and like got an over-unders and just started going. And I was like, oh, okay. And so then he was like, okay, I believe you. And then he got a grin on his face. And so that was my first kind of, the first time I learned anything contextually about the wrestling environment in Mississippi. What I would later come to find out is that there isn't really wrestling in Mississippi. And so that's why I'm here to talk with you. And so we started an organization called Mississippi Wrestling Federation Foundation. And our mission is to grow the sport of wrestling at every level in Mississippi.
I absolutely love it. You guys are doing the Lord's work down there, and 5-10 years from now, we'll be talking again, and there'll be a flourishing wrestling environment down there. So, I mean, the net is that wrestling is a sanctioned sport in Mississippi, but there's only one school that's technically active, and so there's not a state tournament. And
two schools.
Right? Two schools.
Yep.
So what's the history of wrestling in Mississippi that you've been able to pick up so far?
Yeah, I've picked up bits and pieces from what I know, and I hope there's someone out there who's listening who knows more than me and can tell us. From what I know, in 1974, wrestling was first introduced and sanctioned in Mississippi, and there were 10 to 15 schools that participated. And of the original schools, there's only one still today that competes, and that's the Mississippi School for the Deaf and Blind in Jackson, Mississippi. And they've had a team from 1974 until now. They're the only ones.
Wow.
And then it seems like wrestling fell off in the early mid 80s. The cutoff date, I haven't found a specific time yet. I've talked to some people who wrestled back then in Mississippi. And it sounds like it's around 84, 83 when most of the teams went extinct with the meteor or whatever you're going to call it.
Yeah. So now it's something where you have this passion to reinvigorate wrestling in the state. How did it grow from you going to this martial arts club to this statewide effort?
So I went to the martial arts club. I said, I want to wrestle. Do you know where I can wrestle at? They said, there isn't any wrestling. We've got submission wrestling, and which I love submission wrestling. I've done jiu-jitsu and do it currently, but not what I was looking for. And so I said, well, do you know where there is wrestling? And said there isn't here. And so then it started as, for me, I believe that to whom much is given, much is asked. And I just kind of put the pieces together, the wrestling background that I had. I moved here from my wife's family's business, just the position I'm in to be able to help others. It all just seemed like almost, I felt obligated, like who else is going to move to Mississippi with a lifetime of wrestling experience, and start something. And so I thought, well, if I don't do it, who's going to do it? And so little did I know there were a lot of others like me in Mississippi that would come out of the woodwork. And now most of us, I hope, are connected. So I started the Mississippi Wrestling Federation in late June, I think, of last year. And then I started digging in, and that's when I found, at first I didn't know the sport was sanctioned. That's when I found that Ocean Springs High School, which is on our coast, already had a team, and they had for the last 12 years. And then the School for the Deaf and the Blind. So I reached out to both of them first. And when I reached out to Jay Snow, the head coach of Ocean Springs High School, he connected me to a guy named Cody Solari, who had just formed the Mississippi Wrestling Foundation about a month before me. And so then we got connected, and we both kind of agreed, we just want this to grow. And so we have unified. And that's why I said we have the federation / foundation. We're trying to make that work as one thing, even though it's two organizations. And so now, and then people he knew, we added to the board, people I knew, we added to the board, and we blasted social media, got on the radio, just talking about growing wrestling. I started a youth club in my city, Tupelo, and
shout out to the Tupelo Wrestling Club.
Yep. And thank you to UFM. That's the gym we train at. They've allowed us at no charge to host the club there, and it literally wouldn't have happened if they didn't let us do that. And they actually had a wrestling mat in their gym
Wow.
And that's what they were doing jiu-jitsu on and boxing on. And so it's just kind of interesting how that all worked out.
So that's awesome, that background and the context. So what is like the next step for like getting a group of high schools to say, we want to do this? I mean, think of all those football just studs down there. You would think they'd have some, obviously there's some legit talent down there. I mean, what's the next step to getting some, like maybe 15 high schools to partake? How does that work?
Yeah. So we've started, our mission for the first year was to try to add 10 to 15 new high school teams to the existing 2. And then so what we did is we went and talked to school boards, talked to administration, and as of right now we have 7 added who are committed.
Let's go. And
we've got a few that are on the fence right now, maybe 3 or 4 that are on the fence. And
who are they? We're sending Gable down right now.
Yeah.
Get on the plane, Gable. We'll send him down. So the schools that are committed, does that mean that they have a coach, or we still have to find coaches? How does that
Okay,
work?
so what we told them was, we're going to give you a wrestling mat. We're going to give you singlets. We're going to give you headgear. If you don't have a coach, we have a network of volunteers around the state. There's probably one in your area who would be willing to volunteer until you have a coach. And we've got to do some certification with the state association in order to do that, if they don't work for the school, But so we told them, we're going to remove every barrier possible. We're going to give you the stuff. If you don't have a coach, we're going to try to have someone volunteer. And we're also going to bring in the National Wrestling Coaches Association has been really, really helpful so far. With, they're going to do some coaching clinics. We've gotten a lot of help from a lot of people who want to come and do officials clinics or certifications, coaching clinics, camps, and we want more of that. We want to really be able to kind of line up for the next couple of years, an injection of wrestling knowledge and skills into Mississippi. Because it's, oh no, I'm getting a little ahead of myself now, but it was crazy.
Keep it going. I want to hear it.
It's like, I never fathomed a place where they didn't know what wrestling was in the United States. And every time I talked to people, I was assuming they knew more than they did. So now I really start from the beginning. Have you ever heard of wrestling? Have you ever seen it? Which is just from someone from Ohio. You don't even think about that. But so no, they don't have to have a coach in order to commit. If they do have a volunteer or someone on their staff, we're gonna, as soon as we get our date set for coaching clinics, we're going to send that out to all of them and anyone in the state who's interested in one day, even if they just have a pipe dream of being a coach or something. It doesn't matter. Anybody who wants to come, I want them to get experience.
Absolutely.
And so we're just trying to piece it together as we go and just get something started. And so not all of them have coaches. Some of them do already. We do have all the mats right now. We were able to get some used mats. Wanted to get new, but now with the foam shortage and just the time, and then financially, it just made more sense. And we're in Mississippi anyways. Most things are used here already. So,
So how do you guys fundraise for the mats and all that? Is that you self-funding it, or how does that work?
I self-funded the initial bit, and I think that's what kept wrestling from picking up here for the last few decades. There have been a lot of people who are now with us who have been here for a long time who tried to get it going, but they just weren't able to connect to others, or I don't know what all the reasons were. But yeah, so I self-funded the initial promise to say, we're going to give you mats, we're going to give you this stuff to get some buy-in. But now we're pretty much at the end of that. And so fortunately, we can provide everything for these first 7 schools. We could maybe afford one more school. After that, we need to raise some more money. So that's why we're hoping to get some tournaments, or a tournament started this year, hoping to do some camps that we can run ourselves and also invite people in.
dude, we got to get you connected with some. I know some people on the fundraising side who I'd love to get you connected with after this. The
Okay.
people up here in Beat the Street, Chicago, they just raised $3 million for a standalone facility on the South Side, and they are awesome people. And they have some just the executive director is Mike Powell, who's this legendary wrestling guy, but the main lady who makes this work is Kathy Yen. She's a former CFO at Aon, and now she works for Beat the Street Chicago. And she just, those two together are amazing. So would love to get you connected, because you look at what Greg Hatcher did in Arkansas, like that model is fantastic. And now there's a legit program there. And like the thing they had that really helped too was Pat Smith, like legitimized it.
Yeah.
You know, we got to get Mississippi a Pat Smith down.
I was looking them up because, and I've talked to Greg on the phone, and I was looking them up, and that's where I just stole his model.
Yeah.
And then I was looking through their website, and I saw that they've got like an academy, and Pat Smith was the coach. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
What? Not Pat Smith. And yeah, we need to get a Pat Smith in Mississippi.
Have you been to it, the facility?
No, I haven't. No.
Dude, it is sweet. It's just been there one time, but it's like this standalone facility, like kind of like a Morton building. You go inside and there's 3 full mats, pictures of Pat everywhere. And he does private lessons in a club, and that's just like one of many clubs, but that's kind of like the flagship program, so to speak, for the state. And they do all their Fargo camps there. And yeah, so I mean, it's exciting to see what Arkansas did, and obviously you're taking it and running with it.
Yeah, I'm not going to call him out here, but I know Lee Kemp's parents are from Mississippi.
Let's go.
Hey, Lee.
Leroy Kemp.
Yeah.
The words are put out, sir. That would be actually, I love that idea. I didn't even know that he's from there.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. DC's also from the South. Maybe he could help get some involvement, but I think, you know, someone who could go down there and be like your main clinician, so to speak, would be awesome. And so for these 7 teams for the upcoming year, are you guys going to do like a couple of try meets and then like an end of year tournament, or how would that work?
So some of these schools, for example, 2 of them are in the north of our state, about 20 or 30 minutes from Memphis, Tennessee, which already has 19 high school teams.
Oh, wow.
And so we're going to try to coordinate. May 15th is our deadline to hear back from schools about who's going to be participating this year.
Okay.
And so once we have those numbers of who it's going to be, we're going to try to coordinate schedules that make sense, like some regular season schedules for them. And it doesn't have to be within the state. It can be, you know, across the border in Louisiana, Tennessee, Alabama. And then, so gonna, get a couple meets, dual meets, try meets, whatever, between the schools that are in the state. And then our state association won't host an official state tournament through them yet. They want some more participation. And so we're going to follow in the footsteps of Greg Hatcher in Arkansas and just do it ourselves for the first year. And maybe we'll do a North Mississippi, South Mississippi, and then championship. But if we've only got 9 schools, maybe we just do it all at one time. I don't know. So that's what our plan is.
Is USA Wrestling been involved yet, or like, are you guys sanctioned through them?
My club is sanctioned through USA Wrestling and AAU Wrestling. We just started a club on Wednesday. We're starting a club in Oxford, Mississippi, which is going to be sanctioned through AAU Wrestling.
Nice.
And I think we're getting a club started also this month on the coast in Biloxi or Ocean Springs, or one of those places. And right now, USA was really helpful in the beginning. And then the last few months, I've been able to work a lot more with AAU. I actually met with the director of the national director of AAU Wrestling and a gentleman who was pivotal in starting AAU Wrestling in Tennessee. And so they actually came to meet us, and I think we're going to be working primarily with them in the beginning until we get to a level where we can support both, you know. So, but my club is going through both because I want everybody to wrestle everything everywhere.
So AAU Wrestling, that's not super big in the Midwest, but they seem to have a good stronghold, and they're doing some good things down in the South. I'd never barely even heard of it in Ohio, but the Tennessee
and Alabama are both pretty strong. Alabama especially with
Okay.
AAU participation, and then Louisiana. I think I don't know where Louisiana falls, but yeah.
So when you go to these schools, are you like cold calling and setting up a meeting in front of their board? Like what's the pitch like when you go into these schools?
We well, the first time I didn't have much of a written pitch and it was a flop, but they actually still signed up. They're one of the committed ones. So thank you for them. They saw through my rambling and to the real value. But yeah, we call the schools. First we were trying to call the administrators, the athletic directors, principals. Most of the time they would say, you should speak at the board meeting or something. So we would go and speak at the school board meeting,
Mm-hmm.
and then that would send us back to the athletic director and principal, because those are the ones who need to make the decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just go over a little bit of the history of wrestling. It's according to the International Olympic Committee, one of, or if not the oldest competitive sport. We go over some of the statistics about wrestling. It's the second highest percentage of first generation college bound students and
Mhm.
across all 3 NCAA divisions of sports. And we just share why they should adopt it. And football is huge down here. Sorry, my dog just burped behind me. I don't know if you heard that.
I can't even hear it. You're good.
Okay, good. Maple, excuse you.
I don't know who's tapping on your shoulder, but if you got to pause, we can pause at any time.
Oh, was that? Yeah.
Yeah, someone tapped on your shoulder.
Oh, what's up? Yeah, I fed her. I didn't know if that was actually a tap on my shoulder or like a muscle spasm. That's why I didn't react to it. Oh, hey. Anyways,
like I was watching Signs there for a second.
Yeah. Did you see a hand?
Yeah, I'm
come
like,
over here?
what the hell was that? And you didn't even flinch about it. You just rolled with it. We might have to keep that in.
Yeah, right.
So
So
you go through the value and the benefits. I mean, do they ever
Yes.
have any hard objections, or is it mostly
No,
a
never.
financial thing?
Never. And so then I'll ask them, because I say why you should add wrestling. I share kind of the history of Arkansas wrestling, how in 2007 there was nothing, and now there's, let's see, I haven't given the presentation in a while, but there's, oh man, there's a lot going on now. There's a lot going on now.
I mean, they have division NCAA wrestling in Arkansas, several schools. It's
Yep.
pretty amazing what they're doing there.
Yeah, they go through the tell them our mission, hit a little history of wrestling, talk about Arkansas. They've got 65 high school teams now, I'm pretty sure, and 8
Wow.
college teams, I think 7 or 8.
Wow.
So that's 14 years, 65 high school teams, 8 college teams. Crazy. And so say, look, it's possible. This is what happened there. We're trying to emulate that here. And then give them some, why wrestling. It's an egalitarian sport, all the statistical reasons as well. And then how women's wrestling is one of the fastest growing high school sports. And then I finish with football cross training, because they love
Mhm.
football here.
Yeah.
And that hasn't hit as hard as I thought it would hit. I don't know why. I think it's because they really just don't understand what wrestling is. And so I can tell them, but it's crazy. It's crazy. Some of them get it, but some of them
That
don't.
is crazy. It's like, it's almost frustrating to hear that, because how could you not see the crossover? Wrestling's just taking dudes down all the time.
I know. It's so we literally have been posting like some pictures of a tackle side by side with a double leg takedown, and just to like really make it obvious. And
That
but-
picture that Iowa posted last year, their 5 off University of Iowa, their 5 starting linemen all were high school heavyweight wrestlers. And
oh man,
that
I need
picture
to find
went
that.
viral. I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
Then after that, I had the offensive coordinator from Iowa on the show, and he, Brian Ferentz, his
Mhm.
dad's the head coach. He wrestled in high school, and he talks like, I can send you a couple of clips on why they specifically recruit wrestlers.
It'd be helpful.
Oh my God. And then obviously Stephen Neal, he didn't even play football in college, and was on the Patriots, like 3 or 4 Super Bowl rings. Pretty amazing. Well, that is just fantastic that you're out there doing it. It sounds like the big next step is the fundraising piece. And so as you get, events and plans rolling, just let us know and we'll push them out to anyone who's interested. I mean, there's so many people that have reached out to me that say, hey, got to get you on even before we connected. So I'm glad we were able to get on here. I mean, the last thing I would ask is, like, what can people be doing who are listening to this and they want to help? Where can they reach out to you? And like, what's the next steps for these?
So we've got, we're working on a website right now, but we do already have a Facebook page, Mississippi Wrestling Foundation, Tupelo Wrestling. If you want to donate, we've got a PayPal donation set up. The Mississippi Wrestling Federation. I wish it wasn't as confusing, but Federation, Foundation, we're the same people. So you can help financially. You can help by, if there's anyone in Mississippi that has any wrestling experience or wants to get involved in some way, go to our Facebook page. Or Tupelo Wrestling is a website too. You can find our contact info there, and contact us.
TupeloWrestling.com.
TupeloWrestling.com. Yep.
TupeloWrestling.com. They'll have the website up soon, and then that's the other thing, like the ground support. People who are in the woodwork there who like wrestling, we don't even know about it because there hasn't been a presence. Like,
correct. Yeah. So now we've got probably, we're connected to probably 25 or 30 people now who are people who just came out that had heard about it and said, hey, I've wrestled here, or I want to get into it. Because MMA is a huge thing here already too. And so there's a lot of people in that community who are really thirsty for wrestling. And so, but I would just, anyone who wants to end up coming to a camp here, coming to a clinic here, we're going to be needing some college coaches eventually. We're working on that right now with NWCA to get some college programs started here. We need the whole wrestling community, because I invite you to come and be a part of history, because we are literally taking wrestling to the final American frontier for our sport. We're the only state that doesn't have it. And so, and we need your help. It's been this way since the 70s. So
I feel like you guys are at such a crucial momentum point where things have, the initial foundation's been laid, but it's at a delicate point right now, right? Let's get it, like the 7 to 15 is a big one. Then you get to 15 to 30 schools, then you're rolling at 30.
Yes.
That's a whole nother ball game, but the delicate point right now, we got to keep it going.
Anyone with organizational knowledge, I've never run a youth league. I've never run any kind of league of any kind. And some of us in our organization have, but any organizational experience or wisdom to share, we could really benefit from that too. Tournaments, league structures for non-high school, non-school associated things. But things are rolling here. Wrestling is becoming more talked about and more practiced. So,
well, the MMA thing has to help, and guys, I mean, you out there doing the good word is just awesome. So we're excited to get this message out, and hopefully after this, we'll have some inbound requests from people wanting to reach out in an organizational way or fundraising. I mean, I'm excited to see what kind of floods in I'm going to publish it today in about an hour, actually. So
great.
And whatever I get, I'll share your way. And man, just want to thank you for coming on the show and for all the work you're doing down there. That's awesome.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. There's a lot of us doing it now. It's not just me. And it's been really exciting to see it grow as more of us, as our numbers increase, our impact increases. And so it's been great. We're happy to be here doing it.
Well, it's hopefully just the beginning, my friend.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Yep. Take care. And that's the end of this episode of Wrestling Changed My Life. Thank you so much for tuning in. To watch the full video interview, go to YouTube, Wrestling Changed My Life.